Well, can you believe it? We got about, 6-7 weeks until the August primary, and a lot popping on the Missouri side this year, including, to me, of all the statewide races, obviously the governor's primary is going to get the most attention. But after that, you look at the statewides, and suddenly the role of attorney general has become so important in our states. These attorneys general, I always get that wrong. They just they get so much more attention, I feel like, than they ever did. So in Missouri, we've got Will Scharf. He's an attorney for Donald Trump. He is running for Missouri AG. He is here on KCMO. Will, good morning. Thanks for coming in the studio.
Yeah, great to be with you, Pete. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let's just start off with the role of AG and how it has become so much more prominent. I feel like everybody knows who their AG is now. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think for one thing, because we've seen such unconstitutional abuses from the federal government and just so many outrageous actions that require a legal response. And that's placed AGs front and center. I mean, this goes back to the Obama administration when it was attorneys general in states like West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey, Florida with Pam Bondi. These were AGs who really stood in the breach and prevented Barack Obama from doing terrible damage to our country. So I think when you look at the high profile that AGs have increasingly had in recent years, you really have to look at why that is. And I think that's because they're doing important work.
So what about you? I mean, for people who don't know you and don't know as much about your background, why Missouri? You've been attorney, of course, for Donald Trump, but why Missouri? Why the AG spot? What's the motivation for you?
So I think we have a fundamental choice really up and down the ballot this summer in Missouri. Whether we want to double down on the same leadership we've had in Jefferson City for a long time or whether we want to elect conservative outsiders. I've never run for office before, as you said. My background is as a constitutional attorney. I've represented President Trump in courtrooms across America, including at the U.S. Supreme Court. I've also been a violent crime prosecutor. I've been a conservative activist. I've worked on things like confirming President Trump's Supreme Court justices during his administration. So I think I bring a conservative outsider's perspective, and I'm not corrupted by Jefferson City. I don't owe the lobbyists and the special interests and the political insiders anything. And I think that's going to give me the ability to be a much better representative for the people of Missouri and a much better defender of their rights.
What about your role, working with President Trump? A lot of people probably have seen you on Fox News and, I feel like you're on there all the time. So I'm seeing you on there all the time, especially as of late. What has that been like working with his legal team through some of these insane legal situations the former president has found himself in?
Yeah, so we were brought on last August. It's me and a team of Missouri lawyers that I work with, including incredible guys like John Sauer, Michael Talent, a lot of veterans of Eric Schmidt's administration in the Attorney General's office, actually. We were brought on last August, and things looked really bleak. It looked like they were going to be able to put President Trump on trial after trial after trial, really starting in January and continuing until the November election day. Unfortunately, since we started fighting, we've found that the harder we fight, the more that we win. And we've beaten back Jack Smith in D.C. and Florida. The Georgia case has basically collapsed at this point. We're going to get this New York verdict overturned on appeal. We're excited to get that case up through the courts. And I think just really you look at the full scope of litigation that we're engaged in, and it's clear that President Trump is winning, Joe Biden is losing, and President Trump is going to have the opportunity that he deserves, which is to run unimpeded for the presidency.
Do you feel like, when we get to the fall, the legal issues are going to be behind him and he won't be finding himself in courtrooms having to deal with this when he should be out doing rallies?
Yeah, I think the New York trial will be the last trial. I don't think any of these other cases are going to move to trial before the election. And I think if he wins the election, and I believe that he will, a lot of this just goes away. The federal cases certainly would be dismissed. So again, I think that when you look at the full scope of litigation, the New York case was obviously unfortunate, but we're winning. We're winning in courtrooms across America, and we need to keep on winning. President Trump loves winning.
As a lawyer and also somebody who's running for attorney general, what is the most egregious thing you've seen in any of these cases that the average Missourian should be bothered by that maybe isn't getting as much attention?
I think the most egregious thing is the fact that Joe Biden basically ordered this campaign of lawfare against President Trump, and he did so publicly. There's this great speech that he gave on November 9th, 2022. It was right after the midterm elections. He was asked, what are you going to do if Donald Trump runs for president again? And Biden says, well, we're going to, his exact quote was, use means under the Constitution to prevent him from taking office. Biden didn't say he was going to beat him at the ballot box. He didn't say, we're going to win the election. He said he was going to use lawfare to prevent Trump from becoming president. And to me, that's the most despicable, un-American, unconstitutional statement we've seen in American politics for a long time. And it's immediately after Biden says that, immediately after that speech, that you see the special counsel appointed. Matthew Colangelo goes to the New York DA's office to kickstart that case. You have action with Georgia. All of these cases suddenly start moving right after Joe Biden makes this statement. So when you hear folks in the leftist media say that this doesn't have to do with Joe Biden, that Joe Biden isn't coordinating this, they're lying to you. We know where this comes from. It's Joe Biden and his closest political allies, and it's just totally un-American. This is not how we contest elections in this country.
You know, people are probably wondering, with your ties to President Trump, do you see an avenue for him to endorse you? Do you see him getting involved in this race?
Look, I think every Republican candidate in the country would love for President Trump to endorse them. I have spoken to him about the race. He loves Missouri, and he loves the fact that I love Missouri. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. But I will say it's been one of the greatest honors of my lifetime to get to represent him, to get to be part of his legal team. And I think we've done good work for him.
What's that thing that, especially if Donald Trump does not win, you think about 4 more years of Joe Biden? I guess you'll be much busier, right, if Donald Trump does not win as Attorney General in theory?
I think we'll be busy one way or the other.
Oh, really?
I don't really stop. But, I mean, the thought of 4 more years of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris in the White House, it's really just too scary for words. I mean, this guy has done such profound damage to America over the last 3 years. I'm not sure if we'll have a country left if he's returned to the White House. Fortunately, I think the American people see that. I think the polls all show that President Trump is on path to not just win, but win decisively, win in a landslide. And I think that's really what we need, just an outright rejection of the modern left and how radical it's become.
What's that thing as you travel around Missouri, you talk to folks? I know you were at an event last night in Johnson County. What is that thing that maybe surprised you in terms of an issue that people care about more than you might have realized?
Well, I think people are just turning against Jefferson City. I mean, to me, that's one of the 2 things that are sort of the big takeaways right now is that people are sick and tired of failed promises from Jefferson City, of politicians saying one thing on the campaign trail, and then as soon as the election's over, getting into office and cutting all the backroom deals with the special interests and the lobbyists and failing to represent the people who sent them there. I think that we're seeing an absolute rejection of Jefferson City, and I think that's going to be reflected on the primary ballot. The other thing I'd just say is the size of the crowds is greater than I've ever seen before in Missouri. I mean, we're talking about relatively small towns. We've been all over the state. We've driven 45,000 miles. We're seeing hundreds of people turning out on weeknights for events that a couple of years ago might have gotten a quarter of that or a fifth of that. So I think the Missouri grassroots are more active now than they've ever been before. They're more angry now than ever before.
Will Scharf is running for Attorney General in Missouri. Will you keep us posted when you're doing events here in the Kansas City area?
Yeah, we'll be back around over the next couple weeks. We're excited to take this thing through to the finish line, and 49 days to go.
Is that the number? 49. 40. All right, we are inside of 50 days to go until primary day in Missouri. The Attorney General race is going to be at the top of the list in terms of interest in this state. Will Scharf is running for that spot. He is here on KCMO 95.7 FM. We appreciate it, Will. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Pete.